We're now with the fire department, and Chief Halford, if you could introduce yourself and your colleagues and then make a presentation as to how your year's been and what you're looking at in the next budget.
Yes, sir. To my immediate left is Drusilla Martin, our executive administrator. She does a lot in budget preparation and control throughout the year and keeps us focused and guided. And my senior staff in the back here, and I believe you've met just about all of them. And I thank them for their service in helping prepare this budget. Mayor Dean and Deputy Mayor Highnote and Finance Director Reeling, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you with a brief overview of the Nashville Fire Department's fiscal year 13 budget request. In addition to my staff that I've introduced, also today with me in spirit are the hundreds of dedicated members of the Nashville Fire Department, who I would like to publicly thank for just another terrific year of service to the community that we serve. Particularly our firefighters and our paramedics and EMTs who perform the essential life-saving services with compassion and excellence. I also wish to thank all the support personnel that make up our operation, and they make the life-saving work that our folks do in the field much easier to perform because of their abilities. I'd also like to take an opportunity to commend Mr. Riebling and his staff in general in the budget office, Talia Lomax O'Neill, his deputy, and Kathy Green, our budget analyst. We couldn't be working with a better fiscal management team than his team. And they help us in our preparation of the budget, and throughout the year they shepherd us through the control process. The fire department appreciates the tremendous responsibilities that lie ahead for you and the Metro Council, and we work hard to be a part of the best approach to these challenges. Our fire department budget request reflects your commitment to quality public safety services in still yet challenging fiscal environment. It obviously reflects for your review and consideration the appropriate cost reduction scenario. I'd like to move now, if I could, to the accomplishments that what we've been involved in this year. And it's been a good year. We're very pleased and we're making good progress. With your approval and with the support of the council, the fire department developed and applied for a Department of Homeland Security grant. It's called the SAFER grant, and it's for staffing for our firefighters, and it is similar to the COPS grant, which you're also familiar with. That grant, along with the existing vacancies, allowed the fire department to graduate a near record class of 63 new firefighters and emergency medical technician, and since we've hired them, they've been deployed to field operations. A new Fire Station 35, located in the southeast corridor of Davidson County, was completed and opened during this last year. And we broke ground for the new fire station in Madison, Station 31, and in East Nashville for Station 3. We also broke ground for Station 33 on Murfreesboro Road and Station 21, Nolensville Road. And we'll soon be breaking ground for the Jolton Fire Station. So it's a banner year for us in terms of those projects, with more to come as we move forward with our CIB process for next year. The fire department continues its staffing, advanced life support, paramedic ambulances, with the addition of 12 new paramedics and emergency medical technicians that are now on board. The fire department continues to maintain a state of art readiness in terms of our equipment, our pumpers and our ladder trucks, our ambulances. This year, we've invested approximately $7 million, thanks to you and the council, in maintaining our fleet. And the fire department, just as the police department and communications, is also accredited by the Commission on Fire Accreditation International, one of only about 80 departments in the United States that has that designation. In terms of our budget, what I'd like to do is move to our budget modifications. And in terms of the 2% reduction that we've proposed, if we were to sustain a 2% reduction we would have to have a reduction in workforce of approximately 31 personnel. We would propose to do that if necessary, but it would result in the elimination of 2 of the existing 55 fire companies that we have. As you know, a fire company is basically a unit that's staffed. You may have 1 fire company in a fire station. You may have 2 or 3. But basically, our fire companies are engines, fire engines, pumpers, ladder trucks, rescue towers, and heavy rescue squads. The impact of that, of course, would be some reduced response times for equipment because there's less equipment in our system. Moving on with our other budget modifications, now moving to possible improvements, I've requested 10 additional personnel for staffing for 1 additional paramedic unit. It takes a combination of 5 EMTs and 5 paramedics to staff 1 additional unit around the clock, 24/7, 365. And the reasons for doing that is that we do want to keep up with our recommendations for bringing additional units on as we see them. Our response times are still pretty good, but what we are seeing in some selected units is an overworking of the units, such that something we call unit hour utilization, such that the amount of time they're spending within the hour is higher than some of the other units because of the workload and demands. So those are the primary reasons we would ask for your consideration in that budget modification. The next budget modification is in the area of salary and overtime. We're requesting your consideration for additional money to put into the overtime budget. Our overtime budget over the last several years, as we've made some modest cuts and we've been able to get by and be within our budget, are actually straining that budget to the point where it costs more and more to do it, and those funds just aren't there. And we ask for a return to stabilize that. The next modification we've asked for is for firefighter training, state supplemental funds. We're asking that be funded as a budget modification. These funds actually come to us through the state, and then they're used to pay the firefighters who meet the state training requirements. And we're asking for your consideration to place that in the budget. How we handle it now is that years ago, there's an expense side to that adjusted some normalcy, the transfer of those funds. But that's, over the years, it's just gotten skewed with more firefighters. And we need to have that pass through directly into the revenue within the fire department. The next budget improvement we're asking for is to, as you see, there's $320,000, and that's to complete the last month and a half of a 2-year SAFER program. As you recall, and I mentioned earlier under accomplishments, we did have a very large class from the last SAFER grant that we got, but the grant expires on May 15th of 2013. So we would need enough funding to get through from that point to the end of the fiscal year, and that's how much money that would cost. I would also like to mention as a side note that although there's nothing in this budget, we did, and we thank you and the council, apply for another SAFER grant for another 35 firefighters to increase our staffing on our fire suppression equipment. We'll hear back from that, but it is 2-year no match grant, and we're hopeful that we wrote a really good grant. Our other grants have been great as well, that we'll end up getting that SAFER grant. Back to the budget modifications, we're asking for also the consideration for an Information Systems Advisor 1. The fire department, like the police department, is a large department, and we rely on our centralized IT department within Metro to help us. And like the police department, we have some of those people just assigned to our department. We currently have 2 that are assigned to our department full-time, and we've been maintaining that for the last 7, 8 years. But our IT demands, and particularly in terms of our billing for medical calls and our reporting system, our tablet reporting system, needs additional service, needs additional help and support. We're really pushing the 2 folks that we have now to get that maintained. So we're asking for an additional consideration for an IT position within our department to help maintain that, as well as the software-specific application we have in the fire department, such as Firehouse software. And we do have new EMS reporting software. It's called Softimage and those types of things. So it's time that we seriously look at considering adding another IT position to maintain those that equipment and such. And that actually concludes my budget presentation. And as always, this administration has always put public safety high on the mantle of government. It's been a tough 4 years fiscally, and going into your new administration. But we've been well supported, and we've made it work. So thank you, and I'll turn it back to you, Mayor.
Well, thank you. Could you talk a little bit about where we are in terms of, I know one of your major goals, and the goal for all of us, is to reduce response times.
Right.
Just where we are and what are the trends on that?
Well, the trends in the response, the staffing affects response time, the more units you have impact response times. But we utilize, for instance, in advanced life support, we have advanced life support ambulance that will respond and to your needs. And in the meantime, we have a first responder system that responds. And we've added, over the years, paramedic cross-trained firefighters to the engine so they can begin to administer advanced life support care immediately until the ambulance gets there. Our response times or recommended standards are set by the Commission on Fire Accreditation International according to our approved plan. And they're different for like urban, suburban, and rural zones, but we are meeting those response times. And so we're pretty pleased with that. But those are the type of organizations that help us set the standards.
Okay. And you talked about the capital projects. We just completed one fire station in the southeastern portion of the county, number 35.
Yes, sir.
And then we currently have 4 stations, maybe 3 actively underway, and the 4th about to begin.
Yes, sir.
And where are those located? If you can just...
Well, we have we have Station 33, which we just broke ground on, and that's in the southeast corridor.
So there'll be 2. There's a new one in the southeast and an additional one coming into the southeast corridor.
Yes, to the Antioch area. And then we have, we broke ground on a new one in Nolensville Road. It's about halfway between 440 and Old Hickory Boulevard. And that's a replacement of the existing station, which we just broke ground on not too long ago. And we'll be breaking ground on the Jolton station, not too distant future. And of course, there are other additional capital projects that are being submitted in accordance with the fire station master plan for upcoming consideration.
Okay, thank you. Rich?
I mean, Chief, on the additional ambulance unit, I think that's probably an important issue to talk about. I think from the sheet you had given us, response times are still within. They're still okay, but
right.
But why don't you talk? What are the trends you're concerned about?
Well, the trends are like unit hour utilization. I mean, you can tell when you're overworking a unit. If the standard in the industry is what's called unit hour utilization of about anywhere from maybe 0.45 is a maximum recommended, because you want to have the units be able to handle their calls and then have time, of course, for them to complete their reporting system, clean their ambulances up, and then all this is on average, have some break time, and also have time to eat their meals. So I think it's something that is something in terms of at least one additional medical unit we give serious consideration to this year.
Chief, take a second while we're on that subject, and for the benefit of the viewing public, I think it's always good to talk about the fire department, there's a fire prevention function and an EMS function, and kind of how that interacts, and of the percentage of calls that you get, what percentage are EMS calls vis-a-vis fire
Sure.
prevention. That's important for people to understand, I think.
Nashville, like many cities, have what they call a first responder system, where we use our firefighters as trained EMTs, because the firefighters will ultimately have more downtime, let's say, than the medic units are running all the time. That's not to say they don't work very hard when they do get called out. They do a lot of training and things like that when they're not. But the trend generally is that in fire-based EMS systems like ours, that the total calls that the fire department might experience in the year, anywhere from 70 to 75% of those calls are EMS related. Whether so, the chances are, no matter what type of equipment you see responding down the road, the chances are they're the highest that they're responding to a medical call. Of course, either as a first responder or a medic unit.
Good.
Rich, anything else?
No, sir.
Good.
Well, thank you for a good year, and for, I think you've been an exemplary department head in terms of the way you work with us through the difficult budgets. And I applaud all you've done to keep the fire department providing full public service and public safety, and at the same time moving with a fairly aggressive capital plan to make the city safer. And the emphasis on the southeast, I think, is vital. And I should note, we'll be seeing you here momentarily, I think, in another role, but you have played a key role with the ECC, Emergency Communications. You also work with the Office of Emergency Management, and you do the fire job. And I think in all those areas, you've served people in Nashville really, really well.
Thank you.
Thank you.